the most culturally sensitive thing to have in a movie nowadays. So again, it's going to be interesting to see where they go. But this is a trope that horror fiction seems to have. Like, wasn't there like an Indian burial ground in The Shining?
Poltergeist as well. Yeah.
Poltergeist. Like, this is kind of a common trope where there's this Indian burial ground that has magical powers and stuff like this. And I wanted to address it, and that we understand that it might not be the most culturally sensitive thing right now. But I don't know. Did you guys want to address this and talk about it at all?
Yeah, no, I think the whole trope exists because of just sort of like an underlying acknowledgement of the sins of the past, right? These things are powered by seemingly, the sins of the past. What happened in the past, the blood in the soil sort of thing, is what gives Dracula his powers. And so there's that sort of thing. But I think there's also... whether people think it's successfully communicated by such a trope or not, I always took it as sort of almost an implied respect for the traditions of these people that have gone, because of the fact that there's always this acknowledgement of this burial ground that we're going to is representative of a people who had a better understanding of how the world really worked. Something that we have lost and didn't respect along the way, and that's why it's this foreign magic to us.
Yeah.
And so I always took it not as a disrespectful thing, but as a respectful thing, acknowledging there's something we lost because our ancestors did something terrible to these people, and that's just always been the way that I've taken it.
See, I've kind of taken it that way too.
Oh, sorry, Brandon, go ahead.
Like I've kind of taken it that way as well, and I've heard a few discussions where people have talked about this, and that's not how people of this ancestry take it. They take it as like, I don't even want to put words into it. Like, if you're interested in reading it, because again, we're not the best people to talk about it. We don't want to put words in anybody's mouth, but I know that sometimes these are not appreciated stereotypes, right? So, sorry,
yeah,
go ahead,
just.
Zach.
Two quick things. I mean, one, I think, John, everything you said, plus, as American culture, right, we are abusing and misusing those resources, which is why it comes back in such a negative way on us. And two, just on a more shallow level, it's just a shorthand for something mysterious is going on here, right? That's, for a lot of stories, that's just an easy way to communicate, why is this odd, strange, quote-unquote, power here? And that's a trope that a lot of horror writers, especially Stephen King, goes to a lot.
Yeah, I mean, it's just that, if you're in other types of horror stories, there's I'm going somewhere I'm not familiar with. And so it is, it's a further thing of I've gone beyond my own understanding. And I'm there's always, in horror stories and sci-fi stories, in everything, you're screwing with something you don't understand. Mm-hmm. And that's why you should leave it alone, sort of thing.
Sometimes dead is better.
Yeah, that's right.
I often feel that way about podcasting with Zach, too. Like, I'm screwing with things I just don't understand, and I should sometimes just leave them alone.
Well, I got one last question for you guys. What is the deal with the subplot of the maid, the housekeeper?
Okay, so the subplot with the maid is that she's got cancer, she got stomach cancer, she doesn't want to address it, so she ends up killing herself, and it's to forward the plot line of the Zelda plot line. So the wife doesn't go to the funeral, overhears the daughter talking to the husband because she can't come to the mom because the mom doesn't want to talk about it or address it. And so the mom hears it, and then that finally prompts the mom to explain why she has so much problems with death is because of what happened with Zelda, right? And so that brings the Zelda plot. And this is why I don't like talking about death, is because my sister died in front of me. This is why I don't like talking about death, is because I felt like I killed my sister. This is why I don't like talking about death, is because we had a sick sister in the house. So that's why that plot line with the housekeeper is there. And again, I just don't think it translates quite well into a film. And
yeah, it's like 3 short scenes and that's it. And I understand what you mean. It's kind of it tries to reinforce themes there, but I think those themes are already there. And you don't need that extra stuff. That's just how I took it. So
yeah. And she was much better in D-Handy Roulettes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yes, I thought she was familiar. Okay, there is an X-Files guest star I'm going to talk about in Pet Sematary 2, Brandon. I don't know if you recognized her, but we'll talk about it next time. So, very good.
John, did you have anything you wanted to add about the housekeeper?
No, I agree with you. It's a subplot where you basically forget about it after she's gone.
Right.
And you have to. Oh, right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I can see where that happened. And anything that you can approach from, I'm there, defending the Zelda subplot. I would have preferred more time. Like, I think you could have sacrificed the housekeeper subplot with more true development toward the Zelda reveal later on and building that more.
Yeah. Excellent. Right on. John, is there any other points any final thoughts, any points that we missed that you want to address?
That the song Pet Sematary by the Ramones is one of the best songs of the 1980s and is a song that, though I won't show the movie to my children yet, they are very familiar with their dad playing every so often at full volume.
Excellent. Now, how would you rate this film? Like, Zach, you kind of come up with a rating. So what rating system are we going to use?
John, how many times would you bring this movie back to life out of 5?
3.5 times. Okay. So I'd bring it back to life 3 times, and then as it was coming out the 4th time, I'd kill it again and be like, "What am I doing?" So 3.5.
All right, I'm very similar to you. I would bring this movie back to life 3 out of 5 times. I thought it was a very effective horror movie. Didn't rely on gore very much at all until the end. Lots of unsettling themes, and again, it's really good. And this is Mary Lambert kind of adapting Stephen King very well, because you can put yourself in these situations that these characters are in, and you can see yourself making these bad choices because you're like, well, like when his wife died, she's like, well, she it's okay, she just died. I waited too long last time. It's gonna work this time. Like, yep, I see myself making those bad decisions in that situation. So it really does, and it sticks with you after you see it across the board. So I would give it, and there are some subplots that don't go anywhere and stuff like that. So that's why I'm selling it a nice 3 out of 5 resurrections for me.
Excellent, right on. Well, before I give my rating, I just wanted to put this out to you guys as like my headcanon. So when Denise Crosby comes back there at the end and her like eye is like leaking and whatnot, so in my headcanon, Gage bit her face off.
Okay.
Yeah, I think he king leered her. He but only halfway. He took one eye. With the scalpel.
Anyways, that's what I think happened there. So,
well, sorry, Brendan, not to interrupt you again, but like, what happened at the end there? She killed the husband.
Yeah,
and then did somebody kill her at some point, or what? She's wandering around a zombie. What happens there in you guys' point?
And there we get to the disappointment of Pet Sematary 2, Zach.
Why do you use words like that? Why do you use those bad words? I don't like that.
Good. Well, we'll pick that up next time, John. That's a great way to leave a cliffhanger for the next episode. So go ahead, Brandon. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I would definitely bring this back from the dead 3.5 times as well. It's good. It's not as good as I remembered it. Like, this movie definitely had an impact on me when I was young, and this was a go-to movie. I love the Elliot Goldenthal score to this. I think the music's really good. It reminds me a lot of the score for Children of the Corn 4 with like the ethereal harmony voice, or not Children of the Corn 4.
Brandon's favorite movie of all time, Children of the Corn 4.
It was a habit that I said 4, but I really meant Children of the Corn 1.
Okay.
Right, Daniel Lick did the score for Children of the Corn 1, and there's a lot of like these operatic, singing and stuff in it. But I would give this 3.5.
If Goldenthal had scored Batman Forever like this, then it wouldn't have been such a departure from Danny Elfman's first 2 themes in the first 2 Batman movies.
That is very true.
So.
Very true.
No, I think it's a good score, but it doesn't fit that Batman at all. So anyway, story for another time.
Excellent. Now, in the Mission Impossible, we had a running count of masks. Zach, what'd you come up with for this franchise?
So this being a horror franchise, I thought it would probably be death would be the counts. Okay, so much like our Halloween podcast we did back on the Top Film Society, that's the easiest thing to count in these kind of franchises. So we had a total of 6 people and 2 cats die in this film. We had the ghost, we had Church the first time, we had the housekeeper, we had Gage, we had Judd, we had Church again, we had Tasha Yar, and then we had the doctor. So.
Okay, excellent. So we got a death count of 6 plus 2 cats?
Yeah. Do you agree that we should count when the person dies twice, that counts as 2 deaths to me? So that's why we have 2 cats, right?
You know, I'll go with that simply because the cat was a different person. Well, a different animal when it came back. Yeah, that makes sense.
Excellent. But then do you count Judd's dog?
Yeah, because that was like the past. It was a flashback. We didn't see it on screen, so I don't count that one. What do you think, John?
No, yeah, I think that falls into the gray area because of the fact that you don't see the dog die
either time.
And although, should we bring in the father and the son then? Because we do see zombie son and dad burn.
Let's just count the present timeline. We'll just make that rule.
Okay.
That's
the present timeline. Okay.
Yeah. Just like I didn't count.
I thought about that too, John. Though that's a good point, but I agree with Brandon. Let's just stick to the main timeline of the film.
Just like I didn't count the one mask in Mission Impossible 4.
No, we counted that mask.
No, we didn't.
So,
nope.
So our final total, again, I know we've had a conversation here so far. The Pet Sematary tally board is 6 people deaths and 2 cat deaths.
Excellent, right on. Well, I think that's it. That's we've hit. Oh no, we got one more question, don't we, Zach?
Yes. The most important question of this podcast, Brandon. John, you're our guest. I'll ask you. At this point, is this franchise fatigued?
Oh, no. Goodness, no. This is a great way to start it out and get it going.
Can't wait for the sequel, right?
Yeah.
Yes, I'm the same. Obviously, we all thought this was a good movie. I don't think it's fatigued at all. I think there is open. The door is open for more stories in this franchise, so not fatigued.
Yes, I can't wait to see what happens with Denise Crosby.
Yep.
It's going to be wonderful. So, excellent. Right on. Awesome. John, why don't you tell the listeners where they can find you if they want to talk to you about the Ramones and ask you whether or not you want to be buried in a pet cemetery?
Well, gosh, you can reach me as Kessel Junkie on Twitter or Letterboxd or Goodreads, and you can find me over on the Nerd Party Network, co-hosting Retro Perspective with Mike Schindler, where we're going through the year 1994 one week at a time with all of the film releases. It's a charming little tale of suffering and woe that's going to hopefully pay off when we get to things like Forrest Gump.
And the Stephen King masterpiece that came out that year.
There are 94 is a pretty pivotal year. Everybody's talking about 99 because of 20th anniversary, but 94, that's a pretty solid year for film.
Yeah, Shawshank Redemption came out in 94.
Which is it came out the same day as Pulp Fiction, I think.
That was one of the first Stephen King movies I saw, and my stepdad didn't think I'd like it because it wasn't scary. And I'm like, I was 13 years old when I saw that movie, and I fell in love with it the first time I saw it.
It's such a beautiful film.
Yeah.
Such an absolutely beautiful film.
With Clancy Brown, who we may be talking about very soon.
Maybe so. And, of course, you can find me over on Aggressive Negotiations, a Star Wars podcast, also on the Nerd Party Network, with Matthew Rushing.
Zach, where can people find you when you're not oozing from your eye?
You can find me on Twitter personally at MoronZach. That's MOOREONZACH. I'm also the host of my own podcast, Always Sold on the Smallville, where we talk about each and every episode of the Young Superman show. We're on Twitter at Always Smallville with 1S. I'm also host of Standard Orbit, Trek FM's original series podcast. We talk about all things old and new, Captain Kirk and the Enterprise. You can find us on Twitter at Trek FM.
And you can find me on Twitter at Brandon Matella. You can find me over on Trek FM as well with intermittent episodes of Melodic Treks and Warp 5. You can find me every once in a while on Cinematic Sound Radio's master feed with an electronic film score podcast called Breaking the Waves. And Good Evening, an Alfred Hitchcock podcast over on the Phantom Podcast Network. And the last episode, I believe, coming out, it's hard to tell. I mean, it's because we're so far in advance recording this right now. I believe that our last episode was Sabotage from the 1936 film by Hitchcock. But it may have been Young and Innocent, depending on when this is released. But that's a heck of a lot of fun. And we recently had John Champion on to talk about Secret Agent, so that was a heck of a lot of fun. And, I guess that's pretty much everywhere you can find us. You can find the network on Twitter at UFP Earth. You can send us an email if you like, contact at ufp.earth. And, like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. And it would mean a great deal to us if you could, leave a rating and review on iTunes. It helps us to get found and helps us to be noticed upon the iTunes mythical ranking systems. But I guess that's all we got for you right now. So until next time when we cover Pet Sematary 2, just remember,